Last week, we started to talk about corporate governance. Okay. Right. So, under corporate governance, we looked at the board, composition of the board, how many directors must be there, then the categories of directors. Then we said chairman is non-executive director. Likewise, we talked about how a company should be governed. Then I showed you some examples. When a company is not governed well, what happened to that company? For an example, we took Enron, where there were certain key important facts. The CEO and the chairman collectively mismanaged the company, and they cheated the shareholders. They showed profit which is not real, and finally the company collapsed. Means what? If a company is not managed well, if the company is not governed properly, that company cannot survive in the long run. In the short run, we all can fool, but you can't continue. This is where a direction regarding how to govern a finance company is given by central bank. And we started to discuss about that. Responsibility of the director. There is a director board. What should they do? That is defined. They must set strategies, look into objectives and match with that with strategies. They must appoint. They are very keen on risk management and internal control. Then we said when you are becoming qualified as a director, if you have been an employee, there must be 2 years interval. The meetings must be held at least 12 times a year, means once in a month, and how they meet, how the minutes are kept. Then the numbers, it must be more than 5 and less than 13. Who is executive director? Who is a non-executive director? What do you mean by being non-executive? What is the percentage of shares you must have? Then we ended with this one, criteria to assess the fitness and propriety of directors. Okay, so one side is age. You cannot be more than 70 years if you want to be a director of a finance company. And the number of tasks that you can handle. You cannot be a director for more than 20 companies. Okay, so these are the things we discussed last time. Okay, now we are going to discuss further on that. Anyway, this is something that was asked in past papers as well. Who decide the salary, the compensation, salary, wages, perks, commissions, and all other benefits to the employees of the company? Who decide that? You are working in a bank. Who decide your salary? Okay. And very simple, I would ask, can you decide your own salary in your working place? Say yes or no. Yeah. Now, board of directors, you have remuneration committee. They will approve it. Under board of directors, they will appoint a remuneration committee, and they will approve these salary scales. Who decide that? The board will approve. Yes. Who proposed that to board? Who proposed the salary level to the board? Can someone guess and tell me? Now, board of directors will approve it. Yes, but who prepare this document? Okay, HR department will prepare that. Okay, and who will approve that? Recommended. Who will approve that? Then it will be subject to board. Final board will approve. Before that, the company CEO will decide. Means what? In a company, taking a decision on salary is a management function. Am I correct? Deciding the salary of employees is a management function. Okay. If that is a management function, who decide that? That is decided by the management. Okay. Right. Now, if you are given the opportunity to design your own salary, how will you design it? You will design a salary for yourself which will not assign to your performance, but that will be an extremely high salary. Okay. Whenever in Sinhala we have a nice phrase, "Handa te tiyana beda ganna hati dannawa." Means what? If you are handling the spoon, you know how to serve yourself. Whatever the food available on the table, when you have the spoon in your hand, you know how to serve yourself. Okay? That applies to every human being. Let's say in Singapore, we all recognize and respect Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew was one of the highest paid politicians. And when he was asked why in Singapore the politicians are paid high, he said, if you throw peanuts, you get monkeys. Okay? So if you throw peanuts, you get monkeys. Now, if you want good people, you must pay them high. Okay? That's his argument. That is the argument of any person who has the power to decide his own salary. Okay? Think about our politicians. Our politicians are almost like Lee Kuan Yew in that context. Okay, I can remember when Sri Lanka was facing a severe flood under former regime, they approved in their parliament a paper to import vehicles for themselves. That's how human beings behave. I don't use the phrase Sri Lankans. I have seen in many places, even in single songs like Gypsies. I don't know why. They all think this is Sri Lanka. No, this is human behavior. Once again, I'll show you a cartoon today. Last week, I showed you Enron just to show how bad a company can be managed. This time, I'm showing you a cartoon about a Japanese company, and that's a well-known company, Nissan. First, we'll go through this cartoon, maybe 8 minutes.
Captains of Industry. The Brazilian-born businessman, Captains of Industry. The Brazilian-born businessman quickly rose through the ranks of the automobile industry to become the CEO of several global companies, to include Michelin's North American branch, Renault, Nissan, and Mitsubishi Motors. It was, however, his time spent as the head of Nissan that saw Ghosn rise to global fame.
Okay. First of all, can you see that cartoon? Say yes. I think I've shared it. Could you see that small part? Yes. Okay. Now that was about a person who was born in Brazil, right? And Carlos Ghosn, Ghosn, Ghosn. That's how they pronounce it. Carlos Ghosn was the CEO of Michelin Tires, and he's well known to transfer a loss-making company into a profit-making company. Nissan was making losses by that time. Then the board of directors of Nissan finally gave the opportunity for this person gone to become the CEO of Nissan. Normally, almost in all Japanese companies, the CEO post and almost all the top post goes to a Japanese. For the very first time, in a Japanese company, they gave top post to a non-Japanese to perform as CEO. In Japan, the culture is if you recruit an employee, you are given a lifelong employment. So I have read a book written by Akio Morita, his autobiography, Made in Japan. He talks about Sony, the cultural difference between Japanese companies and the rest of the world. In Japan, if you recruit an employee, you must provide him employment, lifelong employment. But when Carlson Ghosn became the CEO of Nissan, he laid off 29,000 employees from Nissan. That's number one. Number two, there are about 46 Nissan car models, which he reduced to about three models. With that, within 1 year, he made a loss making company a profit making company. And the rest is history. Now, that's what we are looking at. It was, however, his time spent.
When he took the company from bankruptcy to financial success once more. In time, he would chair the powerful Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance and bring the group to a 10% global market share. Then suddenly, Ghosn's world turned upside down as he touched down in a private plane to Tokyo International Airport late in the afternoon of November 19, 2018. Ghosn was met by Tokyo district prosecutors, who immediately took him into custody. Shortly after, his top aide, Greg Kelly, was also arrested when arriving back home to Japan after a trip in the US. Hours later, Nissan's chief executive Hiroto Sakawa called a press conference and
Okay, so Ghosn, right? He believed that his company board of directors and the company will stand with him, but that was not the case. Hours later, Nissan CEO called a press conference
revealed that Ghosn had been dismissed from Nissan's board of directors, and that
said he is removed.
he would be subsequently stripped of all executive rights.
Okay, so the press conference, he said he's removed and he's no more an employee of Nissan.
Financial world was shocked. What in the world could have happened to have a man known as Mr. Fix-It for his miraculous turnarounds of troubled companies fall so far and so fast from grace? The answer would come soon enough. And for those who understood Japanese business culture, they wouldn't be very surprising. Ghosn had been the target of an internal Nissan investigation.
Okay, so Ghosn has been target of an internal Nissan investigation. Okay, so that was not done just by the Japanese government. Even the Nissan, rest of the board, was looking into some suspected transactions between their own boss.
In cooperation with Japanese police, when suspicions arose over his misuse of company funds. As the investigation dragged on, a laundry list of financial misdeeds was discovered, all centered around the use of Nissan funds for Ghosn's personal gain.
Okay, now the company funds cannot be used for personal gains, and that was the main accusation against Ghosn.
To avoid public embarrassment in the shame-sensitive nation of Japan, Nissan worked to limit the details of that investigation with the public. But what came to light was a deep culture of corruption by Ghosn and his top aide, who both worked to hide their misuse of company funds from other top executives. Ghosn allegedly manipulated Nissan's record-keeping to hide the fact that he was using the company to pay some or all of the costs of his $18 million residences in Rio de Janeiro.
Right. So Carlson Ghosn was a citizen of Brazil. So he had a mansion in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Beirut, that's in Lebanon, and Paris, Netherlands, Amsterdam.
Beirut, Paris, and Amsterdam.
So he was having properties, big houses in these places.
He also routinely charged all family vacation expenses directly to the company. And given
being the top, he transferred his personal expenses to be paid by the
And his
company.
expensive tastes, this wasn't a budget trip to the local water park. We're talking millions and gallivanting around the world, all on the company dime. Goen had talked Nissan into setting up a shell company, ZA Capital, to be used to make venture investments around the end of 2010.
We talked about venture investments. Now, that is used as a shell to cover up his transactions.
And this company became his own personal piggy bank. To hide his activities, Goen created an elaborate chain of shell companies that handled the money ZA Capital was investing in various venture enterprises. The long chain of shell companies stymied the efforts of Nissan auditors to track ZA's activities and hid Goen's spending spree from the company. In total,
Okay, so he was spending millions on personal properties.
somewhere around $15 to $20 million in property alone was purchased by Goen on the company dime. Buying property and taking off for luxury vacations around the world wasn't enough for Goen, though, and that's because one specific aspect of Japanese CEO culture
Okay, mark that part. Japanese CEO culture.
particularly chafed the rich Brazilian businessman. In Japanese culture, CEOs are not the sociopathic, greedy, aggressive, intimidating figures that
Okay, so in Japanese culture, the CEOs are not the type of people created in the Western world. When I was reading Akio Morita's autobiography, Made in Japan, he talks about starting a company in US. And when he started the company in US, in a particular midnight, he was working with the rest of the employees. And someone has tipped off something illegal is happening here, and the US police came and they packed the entire team and put them in remand. Then a lawyer comes next morning and said, "You have arrested CEO of a company." And they said, "No, we have arrested only laborers." So in Japan, the CEO is no more different than the rest of the team.
they usually are in the rest of the world, or at least they're not supposed to be. Japanese CEO culture strives for a sense of humility and modesty, and thus Japanese CEOs are not paid nearly as lavishly as those from other nations.
Okay, now that's another one. In Japan, as per their rules, the CEO should disclose his salary. But Carlson Ghosn has not done that.
For Goen, this was unacceptable. To hell with humility. Goen needed to get paid. And get paid he did. With the aid of his confidant Greg Kelly, Goen created a series of very complicated deferred payment plans, which were hidden from financial reports and
Deferred payment plans. Now that was something in favor for Ghosn. He said these were not still paid by Nissan, and that include my retirement benefit.
amounted to Goen giving himself a bonus of around $80 million. For those keeping track, this brought Goen's additional compensation to about $100 million, though the full figure is still a mystery, as Nissan fights very hard to keep that embarrassing secret from leaking out. As if that wasn't enough, Goen then shifted the tab for a personal investment loss of $16.6 million directly to the company, because when you're a greedy scam artist, apparently you can't help yourself. But wait, you might say, wasn't Goen responsible for turning around struggling automakers and leading one of the largest companies in the world? Maybe he deserved more than the modest salary that Japanese CEO culture.
But this person has changed the Japanese company which was making losses.
Afforded him. A man should be rewarded for his hard work, after all. Well, you'd be right in saying that a man should be rewarded for their talent and hard work, which is why Goen was, at the time of his initial arrest in 2018, earning almost $17 million a year as one of the world's top paid auto executives.
Legally, he was paid 17 million a year, US dollars. That was not the issue. Issue was what he was trying to hide.
You know, maybe Goen was right in stealing around $100 million from Nissan. A man can barely make ends meet at $17 million a year. Goen was held under arrest for several days and was about to be released on bail when news of an additional $8 million he had stolen through yet another shell company surfaced. He was once more put back in jail pending a bail hearing. an act that he protested. His wife also wrote a letter to the Human Rights Watch protesting
Now comes the playing of human rights.
his treatment, because everyone knows that a rich person sitting in jail constitutes a grave violation of human rights. Goen was worth tens of millions of dollars, and yet forced to sit in jail for having stolen over $100 million, rubbing shoulders with common criminals. This was an Avengers-level human rights threat. Despite Goen's wife's passionate plea to the world community that Goen's human rights were being violated by being forced to sit in jail for his crime, the Japanese legal system said, "Bye, girl," and denied a bail hearing until early March.
Okay, his wife tried on human rights, but the Japanese officers were not interested.
Goen was forced to sit in jail for almost a month in total over 2 separate arrests before being allowed bail. Remember that next time you hear of someone going to jail for years over a drug possession charge. Goen's arrest prompted other companies he had worked with to take a second look at their own finances because
Goen may be the only person who became the CEO simultaneously in two Fortune 500 companies, Renault and Nissan.
maybe Mr. Fix-It wasn't just fixing their companies, but his pocket on their dime as well. An investigation by Renault revealed 11 million euro of questionable expenses by Goen, and the French government opened a separate investigation into Goen. Distraught over the possibility of actually having her husband be held accountable for the theft of 100 million and counting dollars, Goen's wife made a passionate plea to French President Emmanuel Macron to intercede on their behalf during a meeting with Japan's Shinzo Abe. Macron replied with a simple, "Girl, bye," and declined. Goen knew his goose was cooked. He would be facing the possibility of prison for his theft, a realization that sent shockwaves amongst the world's elite and rich. He had to do something, and do it fast because the noose was closing in on him. Any day now, he could be carted off to prison from his house arrest in his luxurious home. But that wouldn't happen because Goen had come up with a plan.
Okay, now Japanese officers, after remanding for 180 days, he was bailed out but under house arrest. So he can leave his residence, but is always under surveillance of Japanese police.
Well, when we say plan, we actually mean more that he came up with a series of Scooby-Doo-like events that only an insanely rich person could possibly pull off. Goen's escape would turn out to be less of a master.
Remember, amidst of all these technological advances, Japan, Goen escaped from Japan. How he escaped is still a mystery. So one suggestion is that he arranged a massive party in his residence. He is still under house arrest, so police was everywhere in his house. But he arranged a musical show.
Reminded Ocean's 11 escape plot, and more of a series of shenanigans financed by a whole lot of dough. First, Goen decided to throw himself a party and hired musicians to come play at his home. Watched by police authorities 24/7, Goen wasn't allowed to leave his home for any reason and had been forced to surrender all of his passports. Well, all except for that second copy of his passport that he was forced by law to have on his person, because in Japan, all foreigners must have legal identification at all times. This would prove to be a bit of an oversight on Japan's part, who seriously underestimated how badly Goen didn't want to pay for his crimes and the Looney Tunes-like measures he would take to ensure.
Okay, so this is another one. We always believe having good technological backgrounds like CCTVs in place will become handy, and no one can play fool with us. So that's what the Japanese police was thinking.
Sure that, after the musicians finished playing, Goen excused himself to a room in his house where the musicians had been storing their gear. There, he climbed into a large musical instrument case and had his accomplices seal him inside with a breathing hole for air. Then, Goen was simply wheeled out of his house, loaded into the back of a van, and driven away, all directly under the noses of the watching police officers who didn't realize that they were in a cartoon sketch and should have been looking inside instrument cases for a would-be fugitive. Goen was then driven inside his instrument case to a remote airport in a small town and loaded onto a private plane. The exact details of Goen's escape are unclear, though, and some sources state that Goen may have sneaked out of his home and met two men at a hotel. Then the men and Goen took a bullet train to Osaka and checked into a hotel near Kansai International Airport. A few hours later, Goen was shoved into a large container and wheeled to the airport, where the box he was in couldn't fit into an X-ray machine and thus it was never checked. Seeing as Goen's box was headed for an international flight on a private jet, airport security probably didn't bother opening the box. Way to go, Japan airport security.
Okay, even in Japan, when they come up with a big box where the X-ray machine is not big enough to X-ray it, they allowed that box to freely flow.
From there, all that's known is that Goen flew on a private jet to Istanbul and then left on a second private jet to Beirut. Once Goen was in Lebanon, Japan immediately requested Interpol issue a red notice for his arrest.
Okay, Interpol has nothing to do with Lebanon. So that was the country selected.
Though, since no extradition treaty exists between Japan and Lebanon, arrest is extremely unlikely, unless Goen leaves the country. For his part, Goen made a public plea claiming he was a political asylum seeker, as he was being unfairly targeted by Japan's cruel justice system for the simple crime of stealing $100 million. Goen claimed he fled injustice and political persecution, which only a really rich person who stole $1/10 of $1 billion would have the balls to do. Lebanon has instituted a travel ban on Goen, though. To date, there seems to be no consequences for the 100 million and counting in theft that Goen carried out over the last decade. Because, rich people. Now that you've finished our story on how consequent...
Okay. So that shows. Okay. So this is one example how if you are given the authority to decide your own salary levels, what happened? So in past papers, there was one such question. Okay. And just think and tell me, you can decide your own salary. The top management of the company can decide their own salary. And that will lead to issues like what Carlson Ghosn faced in Nissan. How do you avoid that? There was a question, something like that asked. How do you avoid? Can someone suggest me? It's a management part. It's management's duty to decide the salary. It's a management activity. So managers means the top level decide that. And the model answer read, okay, now, if you can make the remuneration approved by the shareholders, you can take a control of that. Okay, so we look into the rest of the documents with our understanding. Now you know that this is how the top can behave. Number 6, delegation of functions. The board shall not delegate any matters to a board committee, CEO, executive director, or key management personnel to an extent that such delegation would significantly hinder or reduce the ability of the board as a whole to discharge its functions. The board shall review the delegation processes in place on a periodic basis to ensure that they remain relevant to the needs of the finance company. Right, now when this act came, there were chairman and CEO posts held by one person. Now, therefore, they were given 3 years to comply with this rule from 2009. Now, the rule is chairman and CEO cannot be performed by one individual. The chairman shall be a non-executive, and the CEO is top of the executives. The roles of the chairman and the CEO shall be separated and shall not be performed by one and the same person. If you are doing that, you are given 3 years to comply. The chairman shall be a non-executive director. In case where the chairman is not independent, non-executive director, the board shall designate an independent non-executive director as a senior director. Okay. So, chairman must be non-executive. If that is not the case, if he's not independent non-executive director, means what? If he's having more than 5% shares of the company, if that is the case, the board can assign another individual as senior director. Normally, there is no such post called senior director. But if there is chairman who is not independent non-executive, then to balance the board, there must be a senior director. Number 3, the board shall disclose in its corporate governance report which shall be an integral part of annual report. So in your annual report, there will be corporate governance part, the name of the chairman and the CEO, and the nature of relationship. Okay, that is financial, business, family, or any material, if any, between the chairman and the CEO, and the relationship among members of the board. Okay, so it's not only they are two individuals, their level of relationship should be disclosed. The chairman shall provide leadership to the board, ensure that the board works effectively, ensure that all key issues are discussed by the board in a timely manner. The chairman shall be primarily responsible for the preparation of the agenda for each board meeting. The chairman may delegate the function of preparing the agenda to the company secretary. The chairman shall ensure that all directors are informed adequately and in a timely manner. The chairman shall encourage each director to make a full and active contribution to the board's affairs. Right? So everything is put in black and white. Why? These roles are very important. Non-executive, independent, top. Number 7, the chairman shall encourage each director to make full active contribution. Number 8, the chairman shall facilitate the effective contribution of non-executive directors. Number 9, subject to transitional provisions contained herein, a chairman shall not engage in activities involving direct supervision of key management. The chairman shall ensure that appropriate steps are taken to maintain effective communication with shareholders. The CEO shall function as the apex executive in charge of the day-to-day management of the company's operations and business. CEO is the top person of day-to-day operations. Okay. Next, you have at least two board-appointed committees. One is Integrated Risk Management Committee. The other is Internal Audit Committee. Okay. So these two committees are appointed by the board, and their functions, their expected activities are given. Integrated risk and the internal controls are key aspects of the functions of a board. Next, there is a disclose on related party transactions. What is related party? Okay, once again, yeah, these regulations are applicable to banks as well. However, as I said, central bank or any regulator issue directions to be followed by the institutions coming under their purview. Okay, so directions, rules, determinations, notices, and guidelines are issued by the regulator from time to time. These are specifically made to be complied by finance company. So this is governed and almost regulated by basically NBFI, Central Bank Supervision of NBFI. For banks, similarly, I won't say the same exact, but similar directions are issued separately for banks by Bank Supervision Division. Okay, right. Now, what I wanted to say here is related party. How do we treat our related party? Okay. Now, I'll give you one example. Suppose you are a teacher and you go for paper marking, A-level, final, GCE A-level exam, paper marking. And your son or daughter has also sat for the same exam. You being father or mother get a chance to mark the paper of your own son or daughter. And you are 95% sure that is not rechecked by anyone else. Tell me, how do you mark your son's or daughter's paper? In favor or no favor at all? How do you mark your own son or daughter's paper? Do you make a favor or not? Say yes or no. Others? Others, how do you behave? Yeah. Whether you make a favor or not, anyone can accuse you have favored your related party. And that is human nature. Very good. Exact word. Human nature. That is human nature. We treat our known parties better than unknown parties. That's how human beings have been evolved throughout history. And you and I are not exemptions of that. Right. Now, how do you avoid it? If you happen to be a level examiner or paper marker, and your son or daughter sits for the same exam, what will you do? You disclose that fact, and you will not go for paper marking in that particular year. Means what? There is extremely less probability of you being able to mark your own son's or daughter's paper, right? Normally the papers are mixed up, and someone from Colombo will see or mark the outstation papers. The chances are extremely rare, but still, it's better not to have a chance at all. So what you do? You disclose, and you will not go for paper marking in that particular year where your son or daughter is sitting under the same stream. Okay. Suppose there is a board meeting to decide purchasing of a large amount of items, and one of the suppliers is your wife or husband, and you are a key member of the decision making unit. What will you do? You disclose the fact and walk out of the meeting. Then no one can raise the fingers or hand at you and say, okay, look here, you have favored. No, better you declare and go out. That's what good corporate governance is. When that is not happening, you will not get a good deal for your company. Let me tell you a story. A person looked at a cocoon which is hanging from a branch of a tree, and he knew inside this cocoon there is a young butterfly trying to break this outer surface and come out. He knew it's terribly a painful activity for this small innocent animal. So what he did is he took a sharp blade and slowly cut the outer layer. Now the butterfly could easily come out. But when he came out of this cocoon, it went up to the branch, slowly walking, and stayed there almost a day without flying. He was so surprised. He called to a specialist on insects and said, this is what I did, and now the butterfly can't fly. Then the specialist said, these animals get the strength of their wings by trying to break the outer layer when they are living in this cocoon. When that is not happening, when that is forced out, they will not get another chance to strengthen their wings. The same is the same is told about young sea turtles. Young sea turtles, when they just hatch out of the egg, they will walk and swim about 3-4 kilometers at a stretch and reach the deep sea. But some people, what they do, they put them in basins and keep them for a long period. When a tourist or someone wants to release them to sea, they will give this maybe 10 days, 1 month old babies to be turned to sea. But they don't have the strength to move into that far and often become easy victims of other animals. Means what? Related party, our thinking, sometimes destroy the ability of next generation to grow. I have seen that among politicians and in business people. Politicians sometimes make their son or daughter qualify without really facing an exam. So they will get the designation or the qualification, but they can't practice, like our butterfly, right? So I can make you accountant or a lawyer or a doctor by doctoring your documents. And that will never make you a qualified, technically sound person. That's one bad factor with related party. Okay, now first of all, who are the related parties? If it's a company, your subsidiary is a related party. Any associate, a director of the finance company, a key management personnel, a relative of a director or key management, shareholder who shares an exceeding 10% of the paid up. Right. The transaction with related party are covered in this direction shall be following. Granting accommodation. Suppose there is a bank and it has a finance company, a fully owned finance company. And the bank is giving a loan to this finance company. That's a related party transaction. Suppose there is a bank and a major shareholder is the holding company, and the holding company has a hotel. And this particular bank gives a loan accommodation of 1 billion for the refurbishment of this hotel. The problem is, if that hotel is not part of your group, are you willing to give 1 billion loan to that hotel? So if that, then you have to deal under related party transactions. Creating liabilities to the finance company in the form of deposits. Okay, so these are the related party transactions. Right. Then comes, how do you deal with related parties? We are not saying you can't do any transaction with a related party. If you do the transactions, you must do it with arm's length. Means what? Treat your related party as you treat any other party. And disclose that. Means what? Let that fact be known to all the shareholders. We normally believe disclosing will prevent yourself. So you cannot take any undue advantage by being a related party. So these are covered under this direction. Okay, so we completed corporate governance area. Remember, corporate governance is something very important. It's like politics of a country. Now we have seen, remember, this is part of human nature. Don't blame Sri Lanka or any other country or culture, right? Don't blame the Brazil people. Don't blame the Americans just because the Enron failed. Don't blame Japanese. As long as human beings are there, we are greedy. Okay. Remember, one good factor among human beings is we are not behaving like programmed animals. Think about all the other animals. They behave like a programmed set. Let's say elephants. They don't walk beyond their capacity. They have like programmed. They know, let's say they basically move around 30 kilometers radius. That's all. They never explore beyond that. And think about squirrels. They used to jump from one tree branch to another. But you have never seen a squirrel jumping to check its capacity and fallen from high sky, fell on the ground and died. No, they are almost like programmed. They know the amount of length they can jump. They never jump more than that. If human beings could jump from tree branch to tree branch, I would say there were millions who have already died just by falling. That's human nature. When you are given a limit, you want to test, can I go beyond that? Long ago, it was said, if someone run 100 meters less than 10 minutes, he will die. Okay. So for a long period, people believed if you run 100 meters within a duration of less than 10 seconds, your heartbeat and everything will go up and you will almost die. But people challenged that. thinking pattern. And they proved no, it's not. That's how human beings behave. That's the nature which made the human beings a developed and aggressive set of species in planet Earth. So you are given a lot of rules and regulations, maybe by your legal system, by your religion, by your society. And what is the nature of you? To break them. Right? So when you say can have only one car, people try to have more than that. When you say, okay, ideally you must have only one of this, you try to collect them, accumulate them. When you are given, okay, in Japan, this is how the CEOs are treated, this is your maximum limit, you overcome that. That's human nature. Even though individually that is beneficial to you, your greediness, that is not beneficial to the society as a whole. Therefore, there must be governance. Human beings are not behaving as survival of the fittest. If that was the case, once again, human beings would have gone by now. So we are not just following survival of the fittest. If survival of the fittest is there, no doctors or no scientists want to find a vaccine or any kind of solution for COVID-19. No, if survival of the fittest, okay, let everyone get and very few survive. That is not. We want to see that everyone survive. That's corporate governance, well-being of the society. At the same time, the other party, individual greediness plays. Think about our stock market. Last week, we surpassed 9,000 ASI mark for the very first time. So it was like every day we are making history. But remember, only 2, 3, 4 companies' shares were going up. And they were going up at an alarming speed. It was creating almost a bubble. Today I will show you another nice area where you can see a lot of information. There is a website called Trading Economics. Trading Economics. When you get into this website, you get 20 million indicators throughout the world. This is how you read it. Indicators, you can go country-wise. Then we are living in Asia. So almost all Asian countries are in this category. So you select your own country. So this is our country, Sri Lanka. Then you can take stock market. And you can immediately see the graph, how our stock market is performing. And you can even go for the maximum, 25 years, maybe all. Within 25 years, this is how our stock market was behaving. Okay. So in 2009, we ended war, and 2011, the first real bubble we have seen in Colombo Stock Exchange. And after that, a sudden drop. I have said, yeah, the bear jump out of the window. That happened in COVID first spread. That was in March. Then from that day, if you have been a real risk taker, if you have purchased shares, by that time, it's going up. At the same time, if you are a very careful observer, as I mentioned, can you see a repetition of what has happened in 2011-12? Going up, falling down. Okay, that's a bull trap. Now going up again. Went up, fell down, going up again. And very soon, maybe by now, we'll reach the zenith. After that, it falls back, then goes back to the normal testing period. Okay, right. Anyway, you can check any information with this. Sometimes you can even compare one country with another. Just for, okay, let's see something else. GDP, annual growth. This is we are. Okay, I want to see about 25 years. Let's see. This is how we have been. right? Now, if I want to compare that with another country, so I'll pick another country, maybe Bangladesh. Then I have to pick the indicator. So I have to go for GDP. Okay. So you can see Bangladesh. When we dropped due to COVID, they also dropped. Okay. But what we have seen in 2011 in GDP growth, they have seen in 2020. Right. So you can compare and you can see a lot of information. Coronavirus vaccine total, you can compare that. Okay. For the time being, I'm showing you how you get information, number of doses. Okay, so you can compare that with another country. Okay, so I'll leave this website with you. At any moment you can compare how our country against another, right? We talked about corporate governance and we have completed that. You have the note with you, go through it very seriously, and very soon we'll be discussing questions and answers based on past papers. Today what I do is I'll give you a set of questions from insurance. From insurance. Let me leave you that. Okay. Here I am giving you set of questions. Now, March 2009, March 2018. Write your answers. I'll give you like 30 minutes. Write your answers. After that, we'll discuss. From time to time, I will appear and talk something, but overall, I'll give 30 minutes to test and write answers. Okay. So when you are writing, check what you can easily do first. This one. What is reinsurance? Let's say March 2018, number 5, question number 1. Reinsurance. What is reinsurance? Or in the chat box, you can send me your answer. What is reinsurance? Yeah, we have talked about that. Reinsurance is what? Now, all this we have discussed in the class. So I want you to speak up or just send me in brief under chat. Reinsurance is? Yeah. Okay, right. So reinsurance is insurer getting insured. Okay, right. So in very short, you have said it correctly. Insurance insurance company in another insurance company. So you are transferring your risk in order to mitigate the risk of the insurer. Insurer is transferring a portion of its risk to another party. So the model answer is that reinsurance, also known as insurance for insurer or stop loss insurance, is the practice of insurer transferring portions of their risk portfolios to other parties by some form of agreement to reduce the likelihood of paying a large obligation resulting from an insurance claim. Okay? So reinsurance is an insurance company transferring a portion of its risk to another insurance company in order to meet the risk of claiming large insurance claims. The party that diversifies the insurance portfolio is known as the ceding party. The party that accepts the portion of the obligation is known as reinsurer. Okay, so we have discussed that in the class. Next one, moral hazard. What is that? Moral hazard. We have talked about it. I think I talked about Cobra effect. Moral hazard. Someone send me in the chat box an acceptable answer. Okay. Behavior of the customer due to insurance cover. What is the behavior? If the customer is behaving exactly in a careless manner, as it is different from the way he behave when he's not covered, that is moral hazard. Suppose you take unnecessary risk because you are insured. You don't look after your property as the way you look after it when you are not insured. That is moral hazard, because they are aware that they are protected, whatever the risk they undertake. Okay. Now the answer reads like this. Moral hazard is the situation where an insured party gets involved in a risky event or willingly takes undue risk that he wouldn't have taken otherwise, knowing the fact that the particular risk is covered and protected against through the insurance policy. And the insurer has to indemnify the loss in the event of risk materialization. Okay, you need not to have the exact words of the model answer. What you need is an answer like what you are given in the chat box. You have to understand what is meant by these terms and describe it. Okay, next one, underwriting. What is underwriting? We talked about underwriting under two headings, share underwriting, and this time it's not about share underwriting, insurance underwriting. Okay, send me your answer in the chat box, then we'll discuss. Okay, I'll wait few more minutes, then we'll discuss. Okay, so what is underwriting under insurance? Send me your answer in chat box or you can speak out. Okay, right. Acceptance of liability, guaranteeing the payment in case of loss or damage. Yes. So insurance underwriting means you evaluate the risk and designing the premiums for that. Let's see the answer. Underwriting refers to evaluating and analyzing the risks related to an insurance proposal. So when an insurance proposal is given, you analyze the risk involved and establishing a price for accepted insurable risk and designing the premium. You evaluate the risk and design the premium. Acceptance of liability, guaranteeing the payment in case of loss or damage. Okay. Underwriters assist pricing life, health, commercial liability, and homeowners insurance, etc., and usually use actuarial data to determine the likelihood and magnitude of claim payouts over the life of the policy. Evaluating an insurer's risk before the policy period and at renewal is a vital function of the underwriter. Evaluating an insurer's risk before the policy period and at renewal is a vital function of the underwriter. So when you are renewing, again, you have to evaluate the risk, say vehicle market, your vehicle price, even you have not checked, has gone up, then the risk undertaken by the insurance company has also gone up. So that's the duty of the underwriter to evaluate renewal premium as well. Next one was insurable risk. What is that? Insurable risk. What is that? Right. Let me read out. Insurable risks are risks for which it is relatively easy to obtain insurance and that meet certain criteria such as being definable, accidental in nature, and form part of a group of similar risks large enough to make losses predictable. The insurance companies also need to be able to come up with reasonable price for the risk that is insured. Hence, the most catastrophic scenarios are not considered as insurable risks. So, insurable risk, say you are living in an area subject to landslides. Each and every year there will be a landslide, and you have constructed your house in that area. Will there be an insurance company ready to insure your property? No. Why? That is not an insurable risk. That's a definite risk. Okay. If that is a definite risk, no one want to undertake that. You are constructing a house on river bank, and once in a year that will be flooded. So that's a definite risk. It's not an insurable risk. Okay. So insurable risks are risks for which it is relatively easy to obtain insurance. So you can easily go and obtain insurance. Okay. And that meets certain criteria such as
Excuse me,
being
sir.
definable. Yes, yes. Accidental.
In Sri Lanka, is that hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I can hear you.
Excuse me.
Yes, go
So
ahead.
in Sri Lanka, is the condition known as that acts of God?
Acts of God means something that is not done by human beings but by nature. Let's say flood. Flood is act of God. That is covered. But think about, you are 100% sure each and every year the place that you construct your house is flooded. That's a definite risk. Suppose you construct a house in an area where there will be definitely a landslide. Nobody wants to undertake that risk because that's a definite risk. Here, insurable risk means there's a probability of meeting the risk, right? Let's say if you're 100% sure something happened, I don't want to undertake the risk. Okay. So the insurance company will undertake act of gods, let's say flood, earthquakes, tsunami. We are 100% sure each and every year that will not take place. Let's say tsunami. You get a vehicle flood cover. When you get vehicle flood cover, it does not mean all the vehicles that are covered by flood will claim flood within a year. No. Then the insurance company can cover that act of God. Okay. But if it's 100% sure, the risk is 100% sure, that is not insurable. Are you clear on that? Okay. If knowingly Okay, right. Okay, if knowingly you jump from a cliff and you die, that's and claiming that and saying that, okay, I'm going to jump from the cliff and I'll take life insurance policy, and I'm doing that, knowing that no insurer want to insure you. So insurable risk mean there is a probability, not a definite one. Okay, right. Then I'll give you another set of questions still under insurance. Okay, so which I which is another easy one, March 2015. Then we'll, after discussing that, then we'll come to March 2019. Then complete your answer for this one. Once again, it's an easy one, but you have to think a little bit. March 2015, write your answers. Right, so the first one, what is the answer? Okay, so this is how the paper is set. The main objective of every insurance company contract is to give financial security and protection to the insured from any future uncertainties. Today, it has become a popular tool in modern risk management. Number one, describe 3 primary functions of insurance. Okay, so what are the primary functions of insurance? Okay, primary functions. Now, these are functions you mentioned. What are the primary functions? What are the main functions? Now, eliminating moral hazard, issuing no claim bonus, they are functions. Here, what are the main functions? What is the first main function of an insurance company? Okay, right. Covering risk or providing protection. Am I correct? Covering risk or providing protection. That is the first one. Next, collective bearing risk. Collectively bearing risk. That's how the model answer comes. Provide certainty. Okay, I'm doing a business, and in case of these things happen, I won't be able to do the business. So I need some kind of certainty. So providing certainty, even if my stock is burnt down, still I can run my business. So the insurance company is providing certainty, small capital to mitigate a larger risk. If I have to keep aside a large amount to run the business, to meet almost the exact amount which I lose, then I won't be able to run the business. Therefore, small amount to mitigate a risk. Right? So the premium, as you said, affordable premiums, that is mentioned here, affordable premium. So small payment to mitigate a large risk. Right. So these are the primary functions. Okay. Answer for the second one. What is second one? 3 types of general insurance products. Something very simple. Yeah, go ahead. Others? Agreed, your answer is correct. Motor, fire, travel. Others? We have discussed a lot here. Theft and burglary. Others? Okay. Right. Marine, public liability, homeowner. Yeah. Cash in transit. Health. We said even health is a general insurance. Okay, good. Next one. Describe how insurance companies protect them from liability risk. How insurance companies protect themselves from liability risk. What is that? How insurance companies protect themselves by, by doing what? Very good, reinsurance. Very simple as that. Next one. Insurance premium of a life insurance policy depends on several factors. Describe 3 such. What are they? When you go for life insurance, yeah, age, gender, health, good. Age, period of insurance cover, health condition, amount of policy, right, good. Now we look into, yeah, risk of the job, correct. What else? Family medical history. Yeah. Okay. Now we are coming to the difficult part. So that was March 2019, question number 5. Okay. Right. Under that, first one, briefly explain two classes of insurance business to be registered under this act. Okay, two classes. What are the two classes? What are the two classes? What are the two classes? Very good. That's all. Very good. So I'll read out. Okay. Because you have to obtain 5 marks means if you just put life and general, you will get only 2 marks. Then you have to write a little bit to get the full marks. Okay. So I'll read out general insurance business. Number 2, life insurance. General insurance business. Now, in this term, they have used the term business, so we'll repeat the same. Insurance contracts that do not come under the ambit of life insurance are called general insurance. So, whatever the insurance policies that are not falling into the category of life belongs to general. The different forms of general insurance are fire, marine, motor, accidental, and other miscellaneous of non-life. So, you can give examples of the types. The tangible assets are susceptible to damage and a need to protect the economic value of the asset is needed. For this purpose, general insurance products are bought as they provide protection against unforeseeable contingencies like damage. Okay, now read this very carefully. Okay, listen to me very carefully. General insurance products are bought as they provide protection against unforeseeable contingencies like damage and loss of the asset. Unforeseeable means what? Something that you cannot exactly say now the damage will happen. Definitely. Unforeseeable. If you can foresee, I construct a house in a place where there is landslide, I can foresee definitely my house will be buried by soil very soon. I go and construct a house on river bank, and definitely each and every year there will be flood. That's foreseeable. Okay? But here, protection is given for unforeseeable activities. The act of God, yes, correct, but unforeseeable. General insurance products come as a price in the form of premium and generally issued for the period of 12 months. Yes. Long-term insurance. That's another term for life insurance. Life insurance is a contract between an insurance policy holder and an insurer or assurer where the insurer promise to pay a designated beneficiary sum of money in exchange of a premium upon the death of the insured person. In addition, insurance of pension scheme, permanent health insurance are covered under long-term insurance business. Okay, so you have to describe that. Second part. What is your answer? What is second one? You are given or you are talking about regulator. What are the main functions? Okay, so what are the main functions? I think last week also we looked in and I said there is almost like a blanket. You can apply for any regulator related. You can do the same here. So send me your answer first. Any regulator, they are common activities. Just mention them. Very good. Okay. I'll read out. Main functions of Insurance Regulatory Commission of Sri Lanka. And I said you can use a blanket covering set of activities for any kind of regulator. So what are they? Number one, register persons as insurers. Number two, register persons as insurance brokers. Number three, register persons as loss adjusters. So your answer is correct. Then advise the government, that's for any regulator, on the development and regulations of the insurance industry. Implement the policies and program of the government with respect of the industry. These are common for any regulator, and I have said that from the very beginning. So these two are not difficult. Enter into any bilateral or multilateral memorandum of understanding. Employ such officers and servants as may be necessary for the purpose of exercising, performing, and discharging the powers and duties of the Commission. Acquire and hold any property, movable or immovable, sell, lease, mortgage, or dispose them. Enter into all such contracts as may be necessary for the exercise, performance, and discharge of its powers, duties. Okay. So for any regulator, I have given you set of activities, and you can apply the same here. Okay. Third one, what is that? Okay. Third one, list minimum criteria to be satisfied in establishing an insurance company in Sri Lanka. Okay. Under that, number one, public company. So you must be at least, or basically, a minimum requirement. Number one, a public company incorporated in Sri Lanka under the Companies Act number 7 of 2007. Being a company incorporated under Companies Act number 7 of 2007. That's number one. Being a company incorporated under Companies Act number 7 of year 2007. A stated capital of which is not less than 500 million. Stated capital not less than 500 million. Board of directors who are not subject to any one or more of the disqualifications specified in the second schedule. Okay. Having a board of directors who are not disqualified to hold the position of director post. A deposit to be made to the treasurer, okay, fulfilling that requirement. Registration fee, any other requirement as may be laid down by the commission. So if you want to run an insurance company, you must be a registered company in Sri Lanka, you have capital more than 500 million, and your board of directors must be qualified, and they are not falling into the category of unsuitable. Okay, then the rest is any other requirement. Okay, right. Fourth one, what is that? What is the investment linked insurance policy? What is an investment linked insurance policy? Yes. Investment linked insurance policy. Yeah. There are insurance policies which are investment linked. What are they? Describe them. Investment linked. Yeah. Okay. Investment linked insurance policy means a life insurance policy that provides a combination of protection and investment benefit. So when you think about Janashakti, they had a brand called Lakshmi. Okay, so Lakshmi, as per the Hindu or traditional, our cultured belief, she's the goddess of wealth. So Lakshmi. When you are holding Lakshmi insurance policy, what you do is you pay the premium and there is a life insurance. Suppose all of a sudden you die, your family members are given a certain amount as a value. At the same time, if you don't die, right, it's assigned to a investment. So this money is invested, and it's like investing in a long-term property. So you are paying a certain amount, and they will invest that in some other, say, shares, and you are given that invested linked amount as well. So investment linked insurance policy means a life insurance policy that provides a combination of protection and investment benefit. Okay. A part of the premium paid will be provide your life insurance cover, while the other part will be invested in a specific investment fund of insured choice. The insurance cover provided would include a death benefit at minimum, with the option of including other insurance benefits depending on the insured choice and the availability. Okay, right. So the paper 2019 was slightly different. The other papers you can easily answer, right? Without any problem. I know my subject area and I can easily answer, right? Okay, now we'll talk in general. So far I have covered, let's say, by now you know what is the difference, what is meant by financial intermediation. Okay? Now, let me ask you questions. You can send the answer in chat box. What do you mean by shadow banking? What is meant by shadow banking? Send me your answer in chat box. I'm going to just uh, revisit what we have done so far. What is meant by shadow banking? What's meant by shadow banking? Very first day, we talked about that. And I also said in your answer, you can name an economist, Paul, what is the rest? So you can add that and tell me the answer. Very good. So you can come up with a good answer. Shadow banking is a term coined by Paul McCulley, an economist, to describe non-banking financial intermediary sector. NBFI sector is different from traditional banking sector, as these institutions cannot hold current accounts. The rest of banking activities are done by NBFI sector. A term which is covering the entire NBFI sector is shadow banking. That includes finance companies, specialized leasing companies, stockbrokers, and you can continue the rest. Okay, so that was the first day session. Describe financial intermediation. Describe financial intermediation. Describe financial intermediation. Yeah. Coordination between lending and borrowing, accepting funds from surplus units and providing them to deficit units. Agreed. So financial intermediation is the middleman's work where surplus units excess funds are collected and transferred to deficit units at interest. Financial intermediation takes place as long as surplus units trust the middleman. Okay. Then we talked about specialized leasing companies. So the most popular question is specialized leasing companies, can they accept deposits from general public? Say yes or no, just one simple. So everyone can answer. Can a specialized leasing company accept deposits from general public? Others contribute. Good. If so, if your answer for above is no, what are the alternative funding sources for specialized leasing companies? Now you can answer. What are the alternative funding sources for specialized leasing companies? Commercial papers, promissory notes, corporate debentures, share warrants, loans from other banks. Okay, right. Then we talked about venture capital. Okay. What are the funding sources of venture capital? What are the funding sources of venture capital? Okay, right, good. So angel investors, pension funds, insurance companies. So they are the funding sources of venture capital. Okay. Now you can, as a hobby, you can just search and find out what we talk or what we hear and check it yourself. For an example, let's say these days in all the social media we talk about sugar, right? I talked about trading economics. You can go for trading economics and you can see commodity prices as well. This is one good website where you can get all the information free. Think about commodity prices. They are fluctuating. They are like shares. Okay. Commodity prices 2000, yeah, this is 16. We have seen a bubble. 2011, almost everything we have seen a bubble, then a burst. Now we see after COVID, right? Brazil and in many countries, we expected the sugar supplying countries, basically Brazil, they were battered by COVID. So the expectation is production went down, may go down, and the prices may come up, and that's happening. Before the prices go up, a reasonable government would enable its state sector or private sector to store as much as possible. Right? So this may be the reason why government reduced the tax. allowing either state sector or private sector as per the government rules and recommendations to store commodities before the price hike. But as I mentioned, we people, human beings, are very greedy. We took the advantage and stored as much as possible, paying the least taxes for the government. Government, I don't know whether they knowingly did it. If they knowingly did it, that's a good sign. Means what? You see, Brazil is battered by COVID. There will be a shortage of sugar and the price may go down, go up. Before that, allow enough storage taking place. Now think about the private sector. We said we are all human beings are greedy. So what they do? They store that a large amount and matching with world market price, and they can make a maximum profit. That's where human beings' behavior comes. Now comes the duty of the regulator. What is that? Take out and ensure fair trading. So all what we see is natural behavior of human beings and the regulator. Okay. So regulator reduce the tax, allowed to store, then private sector store as much as possible and try to increase to match the global price. Okay. Think about any other commodity. If you take wheat, okay. Now this shows how we behave. Can you remember immediately when COVID affected, let's say March, what happened? Prices started to drop down drastically in everything. Say oil, for the very first time, oil was selling at negative prices as well. But that was not the constant reason. Right? So how human beings behave, right? Human beings behave like we say herd mentality, like how buffaloes behave. All of a sudden, you see things only in the short run. Study social media, how a lot of people behave. Very, very short-sighted. That's good. That's how human beings behave. I only see how to protect myself now, and I don't see long term. That's where bankers, investors, and some careful policymakers take decisions like regulators. Okay? So when price goes down, the seller believe there won't be any possibility of selling in near future. COVID will affect and all human beings' activities will be changed. And the oil price went even to negative values. If you had a capacity to store oil, maybe a private sector, maybe a state sector, very soon, when the world prices catches up, you can make huge profit. That's what business is doing. Then comes the role of the regulator. That greediness is very bad to the society. Therefore, the regulator intervenes. Say what happened in Japan Nissan case. Nissan, being a company, they wanted to see profit. They hired a person who can turn around the company. So Mr. Fix, Carlson Ghosn, was given the top post of the company. And he turned around. He showed Nissan massive profits. But what followed next? Greediness. What followed next? Regulatory intervention. That happened in sugar price in Sri Lanka as well. Now, don't blame Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan culture, its government, or human Sri Lankan population. That's how, whether you live in Japan, whether you live in Sri Lanka, or anywhere, you behave. That's where you have a regulator. Today, we talked about insurance. Under insurance, there is a regulator, and what is their role? Okay. So, my dear, use internet very wisely. We have wealth of knowledge and luckily stored data throughout the world. Almost every country, every commodity is covered and it's available free. But I have never seen either politicians or in the social media anyone quoting with sources. Okay? They talk something out of imagination without quoting a source. This is the source. No, we are not. Right. Now, for exam purpose, you are slowly covering up. We talked about one subject. Today we talked about insurance. Next week, I'll theoretically cover up capital adequacy. And question wise, I would take another one, say primary dealers or venture capital. I'll select set of questions like this and continue. Okay, so with that, I'll end today's session. Thank you. Exam dates, no, not yet fixed. I will keep update on that. That's not still fixed. Okay, thank you.